7. Yasvakat parato veha. 28. Ato dichim disham yatu. Swair agnata gatir bhavan. Itirvik prayasa kala. Pumsam guna vikarshana. Ato dicham disham yatu. Swair agnata gatir bhavan. Itirvik prayasa kala. Pumsam guna vikarshana. Ato disham yatu. Swair agnata gatir bhavan. Itoriva prayasha kala. Pumsam guna vikarshana. Word to word translation. Hare Krishna. Chadvandi. Ato disham yatu. Swair agnata gatir bhavan. Hitorvik prayasa kala. Pumso guna vikarshana. Mataji. Ato disham Swair agnata gatir bhavan. Hitorvik prayasa kala. Pumsam guna vikarshana. Gatir bhavan. Pumsa guna vikarshana. Mataji. Ato disham yatu. Swairagnata gatir bhavan. Hitorvik prayasa kala. Pumsam guna vikarshana. Ato disham yatu. Swairagnata gatir bhavan. Hitorva prayasa kalaha. Pumsam guna vikarshanaha. Ataha. Therefore, Vidichim, northern side. Disham, direction. Yatu, please go away. Swai, by your relatives. Agnata, without knowledge. Gatihi, movements. Bhavan, of yourself. Itaha, after this. Arvak, will usher in. Prayasaha, generally. Prayashaha, generally. Kalaha, time. Pumsam, of men. Guna, qualities. Vikarshanaha, diminishing. So translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charananda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Jai Srila Prabhupada. Please therefore leave for the north immediately without letting your relatives know, for soon the time will approach which will diminish the good qualities of men. One can compensate for a life of frustration by becoming a dhira or leaving home for good without communicating with relatives, and Vidura advised his eldest brother to adopt this way without delay, because very quickly the age of Kali was approaching. A conditioned soul is already degraded by material association, and still in Kali Yuga the good qualities of a man will deteriorate to the lowest standard. He was advised to leave home before Kali Yuga approached, because the atmosphere which was created by Vidura, his valuable instruction on the facts of life, would fade away due to the influence of the age which was fast approaching. To become Narottama, or a first class human being, depending completely on the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, is not possible for any ordinary man. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that a person who is completely relieved of all taints of sinful acts can alone depend on the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Dhritarashtra was advised by Vidura at least become a dhira in the beginning, if it were possible for him to become a sannyasi or a narottama. Persistently endeavoring on the line of self-realization helps a person to rise to the condition of a narottama from the stage of a dhira. The dhira stage is attained after prolonged practice of yoga system, but by the grace of Vidura one can attain the stage immediately simply by willing to adopt the means of dhira stage, which is the preparatory stage for sannyasa. The sannyasa stage is the preparatory stage of Paramahamsa, or the first great devotee of the Lord. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Nena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamahyam Dadati Swapanantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Tapadakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijan Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakamitam Shri Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Bhagavate Girimet Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurum Devatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Om Tat Sat. Ato Disham Yatu Swair Agnata Gatir Bhavan Ito Drivik Prayashaha Kala Pumsan Guna Vikarshana. Please therefore leave for the north immediately without letting your relatives know, for soon that time will approach which will diminish the good qualities of men. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Please therefore leave for the north immediately. Dishamuttaram. Dishamuttaram. So Dishamuttaram is why this specific term is used, Dishamuttaram. So anybody who is traveling north will not return back home. So that is the idea. So that life is meant for self-realization. So it is a life meant for self-realization. It is not a life of bondage. So the human form, everybody knows this in Vedic life. Anybody who travels north will never return back home. And to live, what is the life? What is the perfection of life? So nobody should know where you die. So that is the perfection of life. The perfection of life is to know, nobody should know where a person dies. So a person should not die in the midst of relatives, weeping friends and relatives. That is not the perfection of life. The perfection of life is that nobody should know where a person is going to do. That doesn't mean that the person should. That is not the success of life. The success of life is that he has prepared for the purpose of life. He is getting prepared for the purpose of life, getting detached from family, friends and relatives, and is preparing to go back home, back to Godhead. The last stage of life, the last 25 years of the life is meant for perfection of life. So which means perfection, now we are giving shape to the life. So all the three stages of life, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, is required to give shape to the life so that at the end of life, we go back home, back to Krishna. This last stage of the life is meant for perfection. So that we can spend all the time for the perfection of life, that is remembering Krishna all the time. So if we don't lead a life like that, what will happen? Balyastavas Kridasakta, Yuvastavas Yuvati Rakta, Vruddhastavas Chinta Magna, Parame Brahmati Kovidalagna. So Shankaracharya says that if one does not fruitfully utilize his life, Balyastavas Kridasakta, in childhood, one becomes interested in family and one becomes interested in playing. Balyastavas Kridasakta. Yuvastavas Yuvati Rakta. So when one becomes young, there is an attraction between men and women. So then there is marriage, then family life. So then 25 years of the life goes in family life. Then Vruddhastavas Chinta Magna. So when somebody is becoming old from the age of 50, lot of chinta is there. So who is going to take care of me? So who is going to take care of what will happen to my sons? They are not properly settled. My daughters have to get married. So all this chinta will start. So how am I going to settle? So what will be my health condition? So who is going to take care of me when I become weak? So as long as the body is hale and healthy, so not much to worry. But when the body is becoming weak, so then the chinta will start. Vruddhastavas Chinta Magna. So Parame Brahmati Kovidalagna. But nobody is thinking about the Supreme Lord. So all the three stages of life is spent like this. But the whole system of the Varnashrama is designed so that we can give shape to our life, so that at the end of the life we can think of Krishna and go back to him. So that's the reason here in this story, in this katha from Srimad Bhagavatam, Vidura is advising Dhritarashtra to please go away from here. So without letting your relatives know. What will happen if their relatives come to know?
They will not allow.
What happens if relatives come to know that you are becoming serious in Krishna consciousness? So then their worries will start. So everybody is thinking about their own sense gratification. So earlier this person used to come, we used to nicely chit chat, we used to go for parties, we used to have nice time. Now he is becoming a serious devotee, he will no longer be associated with us. So we will be losing our part of sense gratification. So their worry is not about us, but their part of sense gratification. We will be losing our part of sense gratification. So that is the worry. So that's the reason people become worried, if somebody is taking Krishna consciousness seriously. This fellow is becoming too serious. This is not good. So anyway, you can go to temple, that is not bad. You can go to temple and come. So we are also going to temple. But why you people become too serious? Because human life is meant for a serious business. So that's the reason the whole life is designed, should be, when we get this human form of life, it's a very rare opportunity to design, to give shape to our desires. So or else, as long as we have material desires in the heart, so it will give shape to different bodies. So the desires in the heart will shape the next body. It will give shape to the bodies in the future. So therefore, it becomes all the more important to purify the desires and give shape to spiritual desires. If we don't purify our desires and give shape to our spiritual desires, material desires will dominate. So therefore, what we are giving, So what is the input we are giving to the subtle body will shape the future bodies. So therefore, designing our future lives is completely dependent on what kind of shape we are giving to the desires in the heart. So, and moreover, purifying our desires is very, very important. So how the purification will happen? So purification, Shuddhikarana ela jarugutundi? How we should?
By chanting the holy names.
By chanting the holy names in the association of devotees. So these are all interconnected. So chanting the holy names of the Lord in the association of devotees. So this will purify our desires and give shape to our desires. And moreover, so mind, many of the times will convince us. Mind is so we are in the association of devotees. And who is the biggest enemy?
Mind.
Mind. Who is the biggest non-devotee association we have? The greatest non-devotee association is our own mind. So, how much importance are we giving to the thoughts which passes through the mind is very, very important. So, Duryodhana was telling this Vidura. So, I know what is dharma. It is not that I do not know what is dharma, how one should lead a life of dharma. So, but somehow or the other I am not inclined to follow dharma. So, it is not that many of us are also in the same situation. It is not that we don't know what is dharma or we don't know what is correct or what is correct in our lives. But we are not inclined to follow dharma. So, what was stopping Duryodhana? So, he knew what was dharma, but what was stopping him? What was stopping him? Why was he not inclined to follow dharma? I know whatever you are saying is correct.
Association and desires.
Association and desires. So, because he was dominated by the desires in the heart to lord it over the material nature. So, these dominating thoughts. So, we know that this is incorrect. So, we know this is wrong, but still we are not able to overcome it. So, we are lacking the strength to overcome that. So, why we are lacking that strength to overcome is because we don't have the strength to overcome it. So, where does the strength come to overcome the desire, dominate the desire? Yeah.
So, through chanting,
Yeah.
chanting and rendering devotion. So, when you chant, your heart will be purified. When you render, you are utilizing all your senses in the service of the Lord. Your senses will be purified.
Yeah. Because of the sinful tendencies and sinful propensities. So, therefore, it is given in the same purport. Esatva mantagata papam jananam punya karmanaha detvadva moha nirmukta bhajate bhav dridhavrita. So, even for devotees also, why we struggle to overcome and become steady in Krishna consciousness is because we do not have the strength and we are not giving sufficient emphasis to purify our sinful propensities and sinful tendencies. So, here Duryodhana was struggling with sinful propensities and sinful tendencies, and he was also surrounded by people who were fueling such sinful propensities and sinful tendencies. So, therefore, the association becomes very, very important. So, though Vidura, Bhishma was there, though Vidura was there, so they were all giving good advice to Duryodhana, but still Duryodhana was always in the company of Shekuni, Karna, Vikarna and Dushasana. So what were all doing that? They were all fueling his desires. They were all fueling his sinful propensities. So therefore, whom are we surrounded by becomes very, very important. So and whom are we serving becomes very, very important. So to eradicate the sinful desires and sinful propensities, so there is a need for performing strong devotional service. So only by rendering pure devotional service unto the Lord, all this avidya can be overcome. The sinful desires, sinful tendencies, sinful propensities, they are all in the form of kuta, bija, rupa, aprarabdha, prarabdha, then kuta, bija and phala. So all these sinful propensities can be overcome when they are fried in the fire of devotional service. So the sinful propensities and sinful tendencies and sinful bija, which are within, this is called the kama karma bija, within the heart. So they have to be fried. Suppose the seeds are there. If you sow a seed, what will happen? It will give rise to a plant, and the plant will become a tree, and the tree will give rise to hundreds of fruits. Suppose if you fried that seed, you fry that seed in fire and then you plant the seed, what will happen? Will it germinate? It will not germinate. So similarly, all these sinful propensities and tendencies in the heart, they have to be fried. So where is the fire? You need the fire to also fry it. So where is the fire coming from? Huh? So that is the fire of devotional service. So you need to have the fire of devotional service. So when we have that fire, so the fire also should be constantly there. So sometimes we are performing devotional service and sometimes we are inclined to, sometimes we become weak, which means we are performing devotional service, at the same time we are pouring water into the fire. Right. When we commit sinful activities, when we again go back to our sinful tendencies, it is like igniting the fire and again pouring water into the fire. So therefore, so in Kali Yuga, so we need to have the fire of devotional service. So that fire of devotional service has to be constantly fanned. Kannada translation, Telugu translation kavala evarikana? English okay na? Telugu కావాలంటారు మాతాజీ, మీరు చేసుకున్నారు. Hare Krishna. So and the fire also needs to be constantly fanned. So fanning of the fire of devotional service is important. So how are we going to fan that fire? By association of the pure devotees of the Lord, coming to association is very, very important. And also regularly reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी तथा रजस्तमोभाव कामलोभोदस्याये सेते येते रनावृद्धिं स्थिते सत्व प्रसीदति एवं प्रसन्न मनसो भगवद्भक्ति योगतः भगवत्तत्व विज्ञान मुक्त संगस्य जायते. So how that fire can be constantly fanned? A fanning of the fire is also important, or else the fire will get doused. We have to keep fanning the fire by regularly studying scriptures. So by regularly studying scriptures, ఏమైతుంది, a fire ignite అయితా ఉంటుంది. So that it will burn away the impurities in the heart. అప్పుడు ఏమైతుంది, తథా రజస్ తమోభావం. సో కలియుగంలో రజోతమో గుణాల యొక్క ప్రభావం ఎక్కువగా ఉంటుంది. సో అలాంటి డిజైర్స్ని అది పెంచుతూ ఉంటుంది. రజోగుణంలో, తమో గుణంలో, సో the rajo and tamo guna, the desires will get fanned. So and those desires will also grow. So అందుకే ఏం చేయాలి? Therefore we need to have a constant fire of devotional service by the regular reading of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam చదవడం వల్ల ఏమవుతుంది? What will happen when you read Srimad Bhagavatam regularly? ఉదయం ప్రక్షాళన అవుతుంది. సో ఏమేమవుతుంది భాగవతం చదవడం? వాట్ విల్ హ్యాపెన్ వెన్ యూ రీడ్ శ్రీమద్ భాగవతం ఇస్ గివెన్ ఇన్ శ్రీమద్ భాగవతం ఓన్లీ. సో తతో రజస్తమోభావో కామలోభోదచ్చాయే సేతయేతే రణావృద్ధి స్థితే సత్వ ప్రసీదతి. సో ఆల్ ది డిజైర్స్ విచ్ ఆర్ అరైజింగ్ బికాస్ ఆఫ్ రజో తమో గుణ, సో ఆల్ దోస్ డిజైర్స్ విల్ బి ప్యూరిఫైడ్ ఇన్ ది ఫైర్ ఆఫ్ శ్రీమద్ భాగవతం. సో అండ్ whom are you associating with? So when you are reading Srimad Bhagavatam purports, whom are we associating with when we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam? We are associating with Prabhupada, pure devotee of the Lord, and the previous acharyas. The purports are all the realizations of the previous acharyas. Therefore, when we are associating with the pure devotees of the Lord in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam, and Krishna is saying that Srimad Bhagavatam is not different from me, I am not different from Srimad Bhagavatam. So by associating, the constant fire is always ignited. Tato rajas tamo bhavo kamalobodasyaye setayete ranavriddhim sthite sattva prasidati. So then kamalobodasyaye. So lust, anger and greed. Lust, anger and greed are called the gateways to hell. నరకద్వారానికి దారి ఏది అంటే కామము, లోభము, మోహం. కామ, లోభ, మోహ. తథా రజస్తమోభావ కామ లోభోదశ్యాయే సేతయేతే రణావృద్ధిం స్థితే సత్వ ప్రసిద్ధి. If the mind has to become fixed, then we have to give up this kama, lobha, moha. Kama, lobha, moha. When all these three things are given up, then sthite sattva prasidati. So the mind will become fixed on Krishna. So all the sinful tendencies, propensities, so all these things are burnt in the fire of devotional service. So andike Srimad Bhagavatam is such a powerful fire, so which will always keep the propensity to serve Krishna active. So a propensity undi prati okkallonu. Everybody, all of us have got that propensity to serve. But that propensity should be given a shape and direction. So that propensity to keep the fire of devotional service in the heart is fanned by reading Srimad Bhagavatam. So to serve is the propensity. We have that natural propensity to serve, but it is given shape through Srimad Bhagavatam. So lekapothe evarni seva cheyali, ela seva cheyali, there is always a confusion, whom to serve, how to serve. But by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, everything will get a shape. Everything will take a shape in our lives. So that's the reason reading Srimad Bhagavatam regularly is very, very important. So lot of confusions as to what should be done in life. Even in spiritual life also, many a times we come across crossroads. So how to serve, whom to serve, whether I am following, whatever steps I am taking in life is going in the right direction. So all these things will be given a shape when our intelligence is purified. And our intelligence becomes purified when we read Srimad Bhagavatam. Our intelligence is sharpened when we read Srimad Bhagavatam. Shastra chadute emaitundi, what will happen when we read Shastra? Intelligence sharpen aitundi. Intelligence sharpen అయినప్పుడు, so when the intelligence becomes sharpened, then viveka buddhi and vivechana shakti will increase. So viveka buddhi, so it will give you the power of discrimination. So power of discrimination, when the power of discrimination increases, then the determination to perform devotional service will also increase. So with the discrimination, your determination will also increase. So therefore, giving shape to your discrimination, so this is very, very important. Hare Krishna. So nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavate sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati raista. So therefore, giving shape to one's desires. So it all depends on one's discrimination power. The discrimination power will increase when one reads Srimad Bhagavatam. So these are the steps how you can keep the fire of devotional service and also give shape to your desires. Okay. Hare Krishna. So here we have to see that how Vidura is giving advice to Dhritarashtra. So here Vidura is advising Dhritarashtra. What advice is he giving to Dhritarashtra? At least you become a Dhira in this life. What is the difference between a Dhira and a Narottama? That you have to know. So Dhira ante evaru? So ikkada Dhritarashtra chepta unnadu. Dhritarashtra is telling, is being told by Vidura, you become a Dhira in this life. Mataji, who is a Dhira? Dhira is a person who is able to control his mind and senses. So he has control over his mind and senses. So therefore one has to gradually become a Dhira, then become a Narottama. So how one becomes a Dhira anedi chaptaru. So how one becomes a Dhira is gradually taming the mind and senses. So first of all, for that to happen, one has to know the difference between gross body, subtle body. Then you have to know what is spirit soul. ఈ మూడు తెలియాలి. ఈ మూడు పట్ల డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ ఉండాలి. మన సూక్ష్మ శరీరం అంటే ఏంటి, స్థూల శరీరం అంటే ఏంటి, దాని తర్వాత ఆత్మ అంటే ఏంటి, ఈ అవగాహన ఉండాలి. సో a person should have all these three. He should know about the gross body, the subtle body, and then he should know he is the spirit soul also. Many a times we cannot discriminate what is the difference between mind and the soul. We cannot discriminate between mind, intelligence and ego. So whether I am acting on the platform of mind, whether I am acting on the platform of intelligence, or whether I am acting on the platform of ego. So when one immediately gives shape to whatever is coming to the mind. So mind ki edo vachindi immediate ga. If I immediately start acting on the impulse, so then I am acting on the level of mind. So mind cheppinatlu vinta unnanu. So suppose somebody is suffering from diabetes. So there is gulab jamun. So gulab jamun undi anukondi. So immediately that person feels like eating gulab jamun. బట్ ఇంటెలిజెన్స్ చెప్తూ ఉంది, ఇప్పుడు గులాబ్ జామున్ తీసుకున్నావు అంటే ఇప్పుడు 180 ఉండే బ్లడ్ షుగర్ ఏమైతే 250కి వెళ్ళిపోతుంది కదా. సో ఇఫ్ ది పర్సన్ ఈస్ ఏబుల్ టు కంట్రోల్ దట్ అర్జ్ అండ్ ఈజ్ ఏబుల్ టు కంట్రోల్ హిమ్సెల్ఫ్, దెన్ ది ఇంటెలిజెన్స్ ఈజ్ స్ట్రాంగ్. ఇంటెలిజెన్స్ మైండ్ని కంట్రోల్ చేస్తూ ఉంది. మైండ్ ఏం చేస్తుంది, హౌ ది మైండ్ విల్ బిహేవ్, వాట్ ది మైండ్ విల్ డూ. Mind will say, anyway you eat gulab jamun now, sugar we can see later. Suppose somebody is suffering from piles, he is not supposed to eat pizza. Night andru party chestam, everybody is making a party at night. So say you eat pizza now, tomorrow we'll see tomorrow. Ante one has become a slave of the mind and senses. Appudu em aitundi, when one follows the mind, suffering will follow. Mind, what the mind will do, mind will propel you to act and will make you suffer in the future. So therefore we have to know the activity of the mind. But what will intelligence do? Intelligence em chestundi? What will intelligence do? Intelligence will give you the reasoning. It will give you the reasoning power. So intelligence will give you why I should eat now and suffer in the future. So I can easily see that there is suffering in the future. ఫ్యూచర్లో సఫరింగ్ ఉంది, ఎందుకు నేను ఇప్పుడు బాధపడాలి, ఇదేదైనా నేను చేశానంటే ఈ చర్య నుంచి నేను ఫ్యూచర్లో బాధపడాలి. If I do it now, then I have to suffer in the future. Therefore, the intelligence has to become very strong so that it can control the mind. It can control the urges of the mind and it can stop the future suffering. So therefore, intelligence has to become strong. So we have to start working on the intelligence. So which will give us a sharp discrimination. We are able to control the urges. అందుకే శాస్త్రాలు ఎందుకు చదవాలి? Why we should study scriptures? Because it gives us the power of discrimination. So అందుకే ఇంటెలిజెన్స్ని స్ట్రాంగ్ చేయాలి. So that you will not overcome the mind. Because mind will propel you to act immediately and will make you suffer in the future. So therefore, Stockholm యూనివర్సిటీలో ఒక ఎక్స్పెరిమెంట్ కండక్ట్ చేశారు. They conducted an experiment in the Stockholm University. So the experiment was, so పిల్లలకంతా మార్ష్ మెలోస్ అని ఇచ్చారు. సో మార్ష్ మెలోస్ అంటే అది చాలా అట్రాక్టివ్ స్వీట్ అది పిల్లలకి. సో క్యాడ్బరీ చాక్లెట్ లాగా అని తెలుసుకున్నాం. యూ థింక్ ఇట్స్ లైక్ ఎ క్యాడ్బరీ చాక్లెట్. సో మార్ష్ మెలోస్, దే told that made the children sit in the room. They gave them all marshmallows. After giving them marshmallows, they told them, so we will close the door for 20 minutes now. 20 minutes అయిన తర్వాత your plate పైన marshmallow ఉందో, so on whose plate the marshmallow is still there, we will give you one more. But for children who have already eaten marshmallow, they will not get anything. So this was the condition. 20 minutes we will give you time. In the 20 minutes time, what you are supposed to do? You are supposed to control yourself. So children who will control themselves, they will get one more after 20 minutes. Children who have finished on the plate, they will not get anything. So they conducted the experiment, they kept the plates, they kept the marshmallows, they closed the door, and they had the camera also to watch the children, what the children were doing. So some children, immediately after the door was closed, some children, they immediately ate it. So some children, they were holding their fists, they were praying. So after 4 minutes, 5 minutes, they ate. And some children, only 1 or 2 of them were able to resist the temptation for almost like 20 minutes. And after 20 minutes, the door opened and only 2 children. So they were able to resist the temptation and they were able to control. So then after 20 years, so they made the note of all the children who were able to resist the temptation, who ate and who succumbed to temptation after 4-5 minutes. There was a record kept of all these children. And it was noted that children who were able to resist the temptation for a longer time, so they became very bright students. So they became successful in their career, job, even in terms of handling the family, so struggle in the family. So they were able to lead successful lives. So people and children who ate the sweet immediately, so they became very easily addicted to many bad habits. So their youth was not good, so they had to suffer a lot in the future. So why this experiment was conducted is to know the nature of the mind and the intelligence and how one can shape the mind and intelligence. So this was a experiment not conducted by devotees, it was conducted by Stockholm University. It's even a material organization. So they also know how the subtle body, how by shaping the subtle body, so we can give direction to the life. So therefore giving direction to the life is very, very important. So why all these things are necessary to know? So then we should also know how our ego will act. So whether ego, why handling ego is important. What will ego do? Yeah, ego is something, it is like the spirit soul. How it identifies in the material world is through the medium of false ego. It is like a bogie which is shunted to the engine. So somebody who is able to manage his ego and have a friendly relationship with everybody, ego friendly relationship with everybody, so then he can very easily gel amongst people. So this ego, false ego, is something like a person who is walking with a rope which is connected to his, which is tied to his leg. ఒక వ్యక్తికి ఒక తాడుతో ఒక రాయిని కట్టేశారు అనుకోండి. సో somebody's leg is connected, is tied with a stone, and as when the person keeps moving, what the stone will do, the stone will also hit his leg and it will bleed. The more he walks with the ego, the more he bleeds. So therefore, the more we identify with our false identifications, with our false tendencies, with our false propensities, so false enjoyership, false controllership, so the more we suffer. The more we suffer because of our false ego. In each and every interaction, we will feel the pain. So in each and every reaction, our expectations will increase. So the more we identify with the false ego, the more our expectations are there. So వాళ్ళు అలా అన్నారు, వీళ్ళు ఇలా అన్నారు, సో ఇదన్నీను ఎక్కువైపోతుంది. సో ఇదన్నీను ఎందువల్ల జరుగుతూ ఉంది? వై ఆల్ దీస్ థింగ్స్ ఆర్ హ్యాపెనింగ్ ఇస్ బికాస్ వీఆర్ ఐడెంటిఫైయింగ్ విత్ అవర్ false ego. The more we identify with our false ego, the more we get hurt. So therefore, what are we identifying with? So what are we identifying with becomes very, very important. Are we identifying that we are not this body, we are all spirit souls, or we are identifying with the material body? So are we identifying with the subtle body, the mind, the intelligence, the false ego, or are we spirit souls, part and parcel of Krishna? Becomes very, very important. The whole life of Dhritarashtra was because of this false identification. So finally, unless Vidura came and woke him up, that see, time and tide will wait for nobody. Now Kali Yuga is approaching. As Kali Yuga approaches, the bad qualities will also increase. So what is he saying here? All the good qualities, that time will approach which will diminish all good qualities of men. So whether we are going to utilize this Kali Yuga now, whatever is given to us properly, or we are going to identify, or we are going to proceed with our own subtle body, with our own negativities, our own sinful propensities, sinful tendencies, so it is all left to us. The choice is ours. So how are we going to make the right choices? How are we going to take our life to a proper destination? It all depends on how are we going to utilize this point in time. So here this instruction is not only for Dhritarashtra. Now the instruction is given to Dhritarashtra that you should go to the north, Disham Uttaram, and perfect your life. Become a Dhira at least. Now it is an instruction for us also. This Kali Yuga, we are all given an opportunity. Are we going to become devotees, or are we going to continue again with our own bad habits, sinful tendencies, sinful propensities, or are we going to work sufficiently for purification? The choice is given to us. So here we should not see only Dhritarashtra. It is not a story. It is our own life. Dhritarashtra's life is our life. Are we going to work on our negative side of our own character, negative side of our own lives, and rectify it and take it forward, or are we going to keep those qualities as it is, just like Bhagavad Gita as it is? We are going to keep the life as it is and continue with our own sinful tendencies and propensities. Is the choice left to us. So the more you want to increase the discrimination power, the more we want to give shape to our lives. Increase spiritual time, reduce Maya's time. So increase your reading, chanting, hearing, so that the negative side is given a minimum time. It is just like the two dogs are within the same person. One dog is a good dog and one dog is a bad dog. The more we try to feed the good dog and starve the bad dog, then the good qualities will improve. The more we try to feed the bad dog and starve the good dog, the bad qualities will improve. Because you have to work, anyway you have to work. Without working, things will go. It is what is the nature of the material world? The nature of the material world, it will always flow downwards, right? So whatever is thrown up will come down. Nadi ela pravahistandi, how the river will flow? The river will always glide towards the sea only. So therefore, unless you work on it, it is not going to change. So we have to seriously work on this. Improve our Krishna conscious time. Give time to Krishna consciousness. Improve Krishna's time, reduce Maya's time. We have to increase Krishna's time and reduce Maya's time. By doing this, we will give shape to the right desires and shape our future. Hare Krishna. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki. Vanchakalpatarubhyasya cha kripa sindhubhyo cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo. So thank you all very much. So devotees have any doubts? Yes, Mataji. Divya Mataji. False ego. False ego, we had given that example of stone tied to a person. So the more you try to walk with the false ego, the more it will hurt you. So how much do we identify ourselves with the false ego, so much it is going to hurt us. So the moment we understand that we are not this body, so first vachesi knowledge cover. We need to have the knowledge and also the discrimination that we are not this body. So as long as we try to identify with the false ego, instead of identifying with the spirit soul, we are trying to identify with the material body, false ego. False ego is material body. So we think that I am this body. So then it is going to, every interaction with the other person is going to hurt us. So as long as we think that this person is also a devotee of the Lord, he is also part and parcel of Krishna. So I am also part and parcel of Krishna. So as long as we think that we are all part and parcel of Krishna and we are all supposed to cooperate with the mission of the Lord, with the purpose of the Lord, and we should all go back to home, back to Godhead, and we should all help each other in this whole process, then it becomes a ego healthy interaction. There are two egos, ఒకటి false ego ఉంది, true ego. మన ఈగోని ట్రూ ఈగోతో ఐడెంటిఫై చేసుకోవాలి. We should identify ourselves with the true ego that I am servant of Krishna. So if I am a servant of Krishna, how I should conduct myself as a servant of Krishna. So appudu then your tendency, your thought process will change. So as long as we identify with the material body, so our every interaction is on an ego trip and it will be hurtful only. So painful, hurtful గా ఉంటుంది. Hare Krishna. Any doubts? Hare Krishna.
When we are doing the services within the devotees, that time also false ego will arise. That time we will not notice only that is the false ego or the true ego. How to differentiate?
So when we are serving amongst devotees, even when we are serving amongst devotees, sometimes we get hurt. So when we get hurt, how to know that we are affected by false ego or true ego? So I will give you an example for you to understand this. So there was one devotee, Jagadananda Pandit. So Jagadananda Pandit was very dear to, he was a very wonderful devotee, but at the same time he was too straightforward in his dealings with devotees. So, therefore, Jagadananda Pandit once, so he was always under the guidance of Swarup Damodar Goswami. So, Jagadananda Pandit once he brought a fragrant oil for the service of Mahaprabhu. So, and he was always caring for Mahaprabhu. He always had good intentions, and he was always thinking of how I can serve Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So therefore, so he was always worried. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in ecstasy jumps in the kirtan, dances in the kirtan, he should not fall down, should not hurt himself. So therefore, when taking rest, he used to prepare nice cushions for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Let Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sleep on this cushion, so that he will feel comfortable. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would reject. This is not good for a sannyasi. I cannot sleep on the mattress. I can sleep only on the floor. So then again, Jagadananda Pandit, what he made, I can sleep only on a mat. So he prepared a mat with a lot of banana leaves, dried banana leaves, so that it will feel like a bed. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected that also. But he was feeling bad. Jagadananda Pandit was feeling bad. So, but then finally one day he brought sandalwood oil to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, told Swarup Damodar, see, this scented oil and all are meant for people who are materially oriented. I am a sannyasi. I cannot accept all these luxurious gifts. So I think this oil is better for Jagannath, because when you use this oil for Jagannath, the oil will also give fragrance and also give light. So it will be very pleasing to Jagannath. It is good for the service of Jagannath. It is not good for me. Then Jagadananda Pandit becomes very angry, and he drops it was in a pot. He breaks the pot and he said, who told I gave this oil to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Then he becomes angry and he goes. And he starts fasting. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes to know that he is fasting. So therefore he tells Jagadananda Pandit. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will also get to know that he is fasting, and he sends a message to Jagadananda Pandit. Go tell Jagadananda Pandit that I am coming to his house for prasadam today. So then Jagadananda Pandit, he starts cooking for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also goes to Jagadananda Pandit's house. He is feeding Jagadananda Pandit is feeding Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is giving lots of prasadam, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not saying no, because if he says no, he will become angry. So then he is feeding him ample amount of prasadam. After Chaitanya Mahaprabhu leaves, all the other devotees will also have honor prasadam. So and finally Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells, make sure that he eats. So because he has fasted for 2 days. So then finally he also eats prasadam and becomes satisfied. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu knew the heart of Jagadananda Pandit. So and he also, so the devotees are in the heart of the Lord, and the Lord is also in the heart of the devotees. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thought, so he knew the art of handling Jagadananda Pandit. So then Jagadananda Pandit expressed a desire of going to Vrindavan. Then the matter was brought by Swarup Damodar to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He wants to go to Vrindavan. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said no, because devotees in Vrindavan are all Vrajavasis. They are serving Krishna in a spontaneous mood. He may misunderstand them, and he may commit offenses. So I don't want him to go. Maybe even if he wants to go, he can go for 1 or 2 days. That's all. Then he has to come back. So because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu knew the mood of Jagadananda Pandit, and finally the matter was brought by Swarup Damodar to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu agreed for him to go. Jagadananda Pandit went to, where did he go? He went to Vrindavan. But you should be under the care of Sanatana Goswami. He was put under the care of Sanatana Goswami. So finally he went to Sanatana Goswami. He was staying under Sanatana Goswami. And Sanatana Goswami, one day he was wearing a turban, so which was given by a Mayavadi sannyasi. So then Jagadananda Pandit, what he did, he asked him, so I think Mahaprabhu would have given you this turban, that you are wearing this turban. So then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told him, then Sanatana Goswami told him, this is not given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but it is given by another Mayavadi sannyasi. Then Jagadananda Pandit takes a pot to break the head of Sanatana Goswami. How dare you can do this act? Will this act be pleasing to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that you are wearing a turban given by a Mayavadi sannyasi? So then how Sanatana Goswami reacted to this is very, very interesting. So then Sanatana Goswami told Jagadananda Pandit, you have so much love for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and so much loyalty for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that that you immediately become angry that I wore the turban given by a Mayavadi sannyasi. I don't have so much loyalty like you. So then Jagadananda Pandit immediately becomes softened, he becomes mellowed down, and he becomes very much ashamed for his act. So here who was enraged? Who was provoked in this situation? And who acted in a sober manner? Sanatana Goswami. So why Sanatana Goswami behaved in such a way? If somebody immediately becomes provoked and comes with a pot to break your head, how will you feel? How are you going to react? Huh? Immediately there will be a fight, right? But because Sanatana Goswami had love for Jagadananda Pandit, so he could immediately mellow down. So all this can happen when we have love for Krishna. So even though we may have devotees, interaction with devotees may become sometimes, because not every devotee is on the platform of prema, but at the same time, the more we try to understand devotees, the value of devotees, so we should know that our Krishna consciousness is completely dependent on devotees. We should understand the three levels of devotees, why there is so much emphasis on Kanishta, Madhyama, Uttama, so that we should know how to interact with the devotees. So here we should one thing understand that we are all practicing Krishna consciousness in the material world, and when we start practicing Krishna consciousness in the material world, we have to interact with all three different levels of devotees, Kanishta, Madhyama, Uttama, and we should also know how to handle them and handle situations. So they should also be trained, corrected, and we should also give scope for correction, and we should move ahead in life. So we should not take an interaction as the basis for staying in the association or not staying in the association, but we should give ourselves a scope for correction and move ahead, because our whole Krishna consciousness is based on devotee association. So therefore, why this discrimination is for the sake of association. We should know how to associate with a Kanishta, how to associate with a Madhyama, how to associate with a Uttama. So with the Kanishta Adhikaris, we need to have compassion. With Madhyama Adhikaris, we need to cooperate and serve with them. And with Uttama Adhikaris, we have to take their orders and serve them. So this is how we should know how to serve the three levels of association. So and this is bound to happen because we are practicing Krishna consciousness in the material world. So unless one comes to the stage of prema, so we cannot overlook these defects, but at the same time each person should give a scope for what we should give scope for. We should give scope for improvement, and everybody should tolerate and at the same time correct, give scope for your own corrections, give scope for shaping your own subtle bodies, and also lay a proper foundation for our future Krishna consciousness. All this training is very much required. So actually we don't have any Varnashrama Dharma here where devotees are trained from the very beginning of life. We all started Krishna consciousness somewhere in the middle of our lives. So So from all these wonderful examples of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, we need to give shape to our subtle body, give up our sinful tendencies, propensities, our defects, faults, give scope for improvement. So we should not be in a proving mode, but we should be in a improving mode. So everybody in the material world wants to prove, but Krishna consciousness is not meant for proving, but it is meant for improving. So this is the lesson we have to learn. And what Vidura is telling Dhritarashtra, we have to improve, not prove. We have to improve. So let us all pray at the lotus feet of Guru Gauranga, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai, so that we will all try to improve and not try to prove. When we are trying to prove, it is our false ego which is acting, and when we try to improve, our true ego is acting. True ego comes into picture when we are trying to please Guru and Krishna by our activity and behavior, our response in a given situation. So and the more we try to establish our false ego, we are trying to prove. Yes, I am right, you are wrong. So we should respect the relationship. Suppose when there is a conflict between two people, so when there is a conflict between two people, so who is going to say sorry first? ఒక ప్రాబ్లం జరిగింది, ఆ ప్రాబ్లం జరిగిన తర్వాత సో we are supposed to say sorry. So who should say sorry first? So sorry. ఎందుకు? So here we may say that person who committed the mistake, he should say sorry first. So or the other person should say sorry. That is the right way. Actually అది కరెక్ట్. బట్ ఇక్కడ the other person will also say sorry. ఎందుకంటే because he respects the relationship. ఎవరు రిలేషన్షిప్ని రెస్పెక్ట్ చేస్తారో వాళ్ళు ఫస్ట్ సారీ చెప్తారండి. భార్యాభర్తల మధ్యలో కూడా గొడవ జరిగినప్పుడు when there is a conflict between the husband and wife, who will say sorry first? ఆయన చెప్తాడా, నేను చెప్పాలి? Husband is always right. So same principle ఇదేను. Who will say sorry first? Who will respect the relationship? మనం ఎవరైతే ఆ రిలేషన్షిప్ రెస్పెక్ట్ చేస్తారో, we are not going by incident. ఆ ఇన్సిడెంట్ మాత్రం చూడట్లేదు, వీఆర్ సీయింగ్ ది హోల్ లైఫ్ కదా. సో ఎంత త్యాగం చేస్తాను నా భార్య నా కోసం, నా భర్త ఎంత నా కోసం ఎంత త్యాగం చేస్తాను. వి సీ ఇన్ ది లైట్ ఆఫ్ ది హోల్ లైఫ్, వీ డోంట్ సీ ఇన్ లైట్ ఆఫ్ దట్ పర్టిక్యులర్ సిచ్యువేషన్. సో ఇన్ని ఏళ్ళు జతలో గడిపామంటే ఇట్స్ ఎ బిగ్ దిస్ థింగ్, ఇట్స్ బిగ్ అచీవ్మెంట్. సో కలియుగంలో అచీవ్మెంట్ ఏంటి అంటే, గృహసాశ్రమంలో భార్యాభర్తలు జీవితాంతం జతలో ఉన్నారంటే అది పెద్ద అచీవ్మెంట్. దట్ పర్సన్ ఈజ్ కన్సిడర్డ్ సక్సెస్ఫుల్. అందుకే డివోటీస్ మధ్యలో కూడాను, సో వీ హ్యావ్ టు రెస్పెక్ట్ ది రిలేషన్షిప్. ఆ రిలేషన్షిప్ ఎప్పుడు రెస్పెక్ట్ చేయమో, వెన్ వీఆర్ ఇన్ ది మూడ్ ఆఫ్ ప్రూవింగ్ అండ్ నాట్ ఇంప్రూవింగ్, దెన్ ఇట్ బికమ్స్ ఎ ప్రాబ్లం. సో మనమంతా ప్రూవ్ చేయాలా, ఇంప్రూవ్ చేయాలి? ఇంప్రూవ్ ఆర్ ప్రూవ్? సో లైఫ్ ఈస్ మెంట్ ఫర్ ఇంప్రూవ్మెంట్. హ్యూమన్ ఫార్మ్ ఆఫ్ లైఫ్ అంటే ఇట్ ఈస్ ఎ లైఫ్ మెంట్ ఫర్ ఇంప్రూవ్మెంట్, నాట్ ప్రూవింగ్. సో ఏ దానికి షేప్ ఇస్తూ ఉన్నామో ప్రూవ్ చేయడం వల్ల? ఫాల్స్ ఈగో, ఫాల్స్ ఐడెంటిటీ. బై ట్రైంగ్ టు ఇంప్రూవ్, ట్రూ ఐడెంటిటీ. అందుకే ఈ క్వాలిటీస్ అన్నీ మన నిజమైన సటిల్ బాడీని షేప్ చేస్తారు ఫర్ ఫ్యూచర్ లైఫ్. ఓకే, హరే కృష్ణ. గ్రంథరాజ్ శ్రీమద్ భాగవతం కి జై, జగద్గురు శ్రీల ప్రభుపాద కి